Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's show is about many issues we don't talk enough about. We'll discuss specific challenges and injustices faced by women and gender-diverse individuals regarding gender-based violence, sexual harassment, and discrimination. And we'll also discuss the key steps that we need to be taken to create safer and more inclusive work environments for women and marginalized groups. Today, I'm joined by Nicole Biros-Bolton, a lawyer at Ross McBride LLP in Hamilton, Ontario. Nicole, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So, can you tell us about specific challenges and injustices faced by women and gender-diverse individuals in Ontario regarding gender-based violence, sexual harassment, and discrimination?
Sure. I think first and foremost, it's important to recognize that it's rampant, unfortunately. I think what we're talking about today is going to be difficult to hear. And so, always good to start with a trigger warning about that in case this is difficult for some people. It happens too often. So many women and gender diverse folks are experiencing gender-based violence on a daily basis. The stats are depressing, and there's a lot of injustice that exists. So that's where I come in and try and address that through the law. In Ontario, we have the Human Rights Code, and it protects folks from discrimination, from harassment, including sexual harassment, in a lot of areas of our lives, including employment and kind of service. So whether that's taking a bus or at the hospital or a doctor's office, a school, all of that is covered, and you're protected and able to engage that system if things go wrong.
So how do you approach cases involving workplace harassment, wrongful termination, and pay equity to ensure justice for your clients?
Yeah, well, I think it's different for everybody. Everyone has individual needs and individual facts as well. And I think also it's really important to recognize that a lot of people have a different understanding of what justice is, right? We all have a different goal when we engage with a legal system in terms of what we want. Some people feel that money would be a good recognition for the pain and the suffering that they've had to endure, or maybe they've lost their job or wages or had to pay for therapy. So money, I think, is a big part for a lot of people. But there's other things too, perhaps public interest remedies, things like changing policies at an organization or ensuring that everybody gets training on unconscious bias or how to respond to somebody who has a disability and is asking for accommodations. So there's a lot of different avenues that we can take, and there's also varying different approaches that we can take. We can write a demand letter, which is basically a letter outlining the law and somebody's rights and asking for something in return. Sometimes that's a little easier than going all the way through court and delays and the things that happen that way. So that's often a good first step, and then we can file an application at the Human Rights Tribunal, which starts the complaint process.
Okay, so as a human rights lawyer with a feminist background, what strategies do you employ to address intersectional discrimination, considering factors such as race, disability, gender, identity, and age?
Well, I think it's constantly something that I'm thinking about. I think it's really important to acknowledge that none of us operate in silos. I'm not just Nicole. I'm a person with a lot of privilege, and I recognize that as well. I am white, but I'm also a woman, and I face a lot of discrimination sometimes that way. I'm a mother that works, so there's a balance there. Same with all of my clients. They all have more than one identity, and many times they have intersecting identities that are all experiencing discrimination. So, for example, somebody with a disability who is also a person of color can be experiencing a variety of discrimination, and it is layered and it is difficult and it is harder for them to navigate. So what I try and do is ensure from the very beginning in the language that I'm using when I'm presenting their case to the tribunal for human rights is to ensure that we're all using that language and understanding that this person comes as a whole, and that we have to understand their experience in the context of the systemic discrimination that exists in society.
So we have about 40 seconds before we go to break, but I'd like to talk to you about sharing any notable examples or stories of individuals that you've represented who experience gender-based violence or discrimination, maybe highlighting the impact of your legal advocacy.
Yeah, I can't share personal stories because I can't identify clients, but what I can tell you is that Sometimes the most effective results are those who are really brave and they just want to come and voice their concerns. And in the end, they get money, but they also get a change in policy, which is really wonderful.
Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and today we're focusing on championing gender justice with legal perspectives. Now, Nicole, before we went to break, you mentioned your extensive experience in the gender-based violence sector before becoming a lawyer. How has this background influenced your approach to advocating for clients and basically supporting them through their legal journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, but obviously I'm biased, but I think it's actually really valuable, the experience that I have. So I have 20 years of experience before becoming a lawyer as a counselor and an advocate for those experiencing gender-based violence. So I've worked in women's shelters, I've worked in the criminal court supporting witnesses, I've worked with pregnant people who are fleeing domestic violence. And I think all of that really does inform how I approach my work and work with my clients every day, because I'm trauma informed. And what that means is that I have an understanding of what trauma is. I have an understanding of how it impacts people, and I support people to make their own decisions. I give them space. I recognize what could be triggering. And I'm a little bit more in tune. So I like to say, I have a handle on TikTok. If you want to look me up, I'm the empathy lawyer. So that is really what fuels me in all of my work. And I think, there are different lawyers with different skills, and we all bring something different, right? Some people want a bulldog, someone that's going to go and fight. And of course, I have the ability to represent my clients well and get them what they need, but I do it differently. I do it with empathy and kindness. And I also think that translates to how I work with opposing counsel. I try and partner with them and find a solution, or pave a way forward that isn't ridden with conflict.
And I have seen you on TikTok, and you're very, very good. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, because you do lead with empathy. That's pretty powerful. Your background helps you not only, deal with the law, but you understand each individual person that you're dealing with.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I try, or at least I understand the difficulties that they're facing and how to support them and listen and give them space. And I think that's what's so important, because, talking about what I said about justice and what justice means to everybody, sometimes justice is just being heard and acknowledged and validated. And so sometimes I can give that, at least a piece of it, to the clients that I work with. And I think that can be really valuable for them too.
So, Nicole, in your opinion, what are the key steps that need to be taken to create safer and more inclusive work environments for women and marginalized groups? And I know you specialize in Ontario, so you can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all need to come together more. I think that the justice system is a huge barrier as it exists. First of all, laws are really hard to understand. They're really hard to navigate, even for me, and I have 2 law degrees. There is so much red tape. I'll give you an example. I had to help a client file a motion in family court. That's not my usual forum, family court, but I was supporting her because it was a human rights issue as well. And I just couldn't say no. So I went through that. But just to file one motion, which is basically a request for a judge to make a decision about something, I had to send in an affidavit that I had to swear to, saying that I had served it on one person. I had to send another document, I think 10 documents in total, to file this one motion. It took me hours and hours of time. And I mean, I did this pro bono, but usually you have to pay for that kind of work. And that's a fortune. People can't access that, nor can they navigate it without a lawyer, because it is so complicated and so difficult to do. So that's what really needs to change, in my opinion, access to justice.
So, okay, so here we're talking about the complexities of it. Like, how do you navigate the complexities and emotional toll involved in supporting clients who've experienced trauma and injustice, and making sure that they feel heard and supported throughout the legal process, because that's not an easy thing to do.
Oh, it isn't. And yeah, and sometimes, sometimes people find it really hard, especially with the delay. That's another thing to acknowledge. This, right now the Human Rights Tribunal is overrun, and as a result, incredibly delayed, years and years. I'm dealing right now with hearings from applications that were filed in 2017. That's
Oh,
just
wow.
ridiculous. Yeah,
Right.
it's really disappointing. So yeah, I mean, how do I navigate that with them? I mean, again, I give them space, I support them, I try and manage expectations from the outset. I ensure that they understand what they're getting into and what the process is, at which points they're going to be engaged versus having to wait. It's another reason I do my TikTok, because I think the more tools that people have in their hands from the beginning, the more they can do by themselves, or the more they know, even, okay, like I'm at work and they're treating me horribly. Oh, I have recourse. There's something I can do. Most people don't even know about the Human Rights Code and that they can engage with it.
And that's why we're having this discussion right now. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today we're focusing on championing gender justice with legal perspectives. So let's go back to collaboration with community organizations. Professionals, media seems to be an essential part of your approach. Media such as TikTok or social media. Could you elaborate on the importance of this collaborative approach and how it enhances your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you an example without giving you too much detail, just because I need to protect the confidentiality of my clients. But yeah, so I had a client who was in a really vulnerable and immediate situation. She was going to be evicted. And it was a human rights issue. We're already in the process of the human rights case. But as I said to you earlier, the delay, it wasn't doing anything. And so I did some things within the Human Rights Tribunal where you can request an expedited hearing, where you can request an interim remedy for them to approach things immediately. I knew that wasn't going to work because it would be delayed. But in doing that, we engaged the media as well. We got CBC, and CBC wrote an article about my client and her dire situation. And with all of that, with doing this litigation, but then also involving the media, we actually made change, and the eviction was completely canceled and a new lease was written. And it was just such a huge success. And we did it all outside of the courtroom. So I think all of that actually involved professors from universities who wrote me affidavits attesting to the discrimination that she was experiencing and why it was a homelessness issue. So like I involved tons of people, the media, the community, the professionals. So I think that's really important. You can't do that with every case. I wish you could, but we just don't have the time. Lawyers are very, very busy, but we do what we can, and it can be really effective in the right moments.
It is effective because it actually gives you another voice, right? And it helps amplify your voice as well. So let's talk about what are some of the biggest challenges that you face as a feminist human rights lawyer, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this briefly before, but how I navigate it personally, it's hard. But I mean, I have a background in counseling and trauma, and so I think early on in my young 20s, when I was starting in this career, I did get burnt out. I experienced what we call vicarious trauma, where you basically experience the trauma of your clients. And it was really difficult, but through that, found my ways of coping, but also through creating boundaries, ensuring that I was still taking care of myself, that I didn't compare myself to everybody else. I have a lot of compassion and empathy for everybody that I work with, but I also have to be able to distance myself a little bit and be able to enjoy my own life when I'm not working, which on occasion is, very rare that I'm not working, but I do my best.
But you know what? It's really important. You said two things. One is that you created boundaries, and the other one was that you didn't compare yourself to others. And that's really important because I think as women, we're super, super hard on ourselves, and we do compare ourselves to others. And sometimes, you know what, there are no boundaries. So we just go because we think it's the right thing to do. And I think this is a really important thing that you just brought up, because we all need to look at ourselves, and I can't compare myself to you, and you can't compare yourself to me. And boundaries are super, super important.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think too, when, doing this work as a woman is also hard. Like it's a traditionally male, white dominated profession. And even still, I think I get some clients who expect, unfortunately, I even had a client who called and said, well, isn't there a man that can help me? So unfortunately, it's still rampant. It's still there, but I just have to believe that I offer something unique that other people can't, whatever their gender.
So, okay, so what do you do? I'm just going to digress here. What do you do when somebody like that says to you, well, isn't there a man? Because I don't want to deal with a woman.
Mm. I mean, that's a good question. I like in that case, I mean, my instant reaction was go away. I don't want to help you and I don't want to refer you to anybody. But I mean, I recognize that everybody needs help. So, in the end, I said, well, we're all able to provide you with service. I mean, I work in a multidisciplinary team where even if I'm unavailable, somebody else might take it. And likewise, even if I referred him to a man, I might end up with the case. So I'm not sure how effective that is for him. I don't like to support it, though. I don't like to support people that have those kind of requests.
But you know what? You are extremely empathetic. You're extremely kind. And so, your heart goes in another way and you treated it really well. As you said, you wanted him to go away, but you wanted him to be helped as well. So we're going to continue on our conversation in a few minutes. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today we're focusing on championing gender justice with legal perspectives. I'm joined by Nicole Biros-Bolton, lawyer at Ross McBride LLP in Hamilton, Ontario. So I want to get into this is super, super important. Could you share some insights into your experience managing a human trafficking and child advocacy program at a child abuse charity and how it's influenced your work as a lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, going back to that trauma-informed approach that I have, that's really where I was able to master that and learn more about it. It was obviously very difficult work, but very important. A lot of people don't recognize that human trafficking is very alive and well in our country, in our province, and we're talking domestic trafficking. So what that basically means is predators preying on young teen girls, usually in shopping malls and places like that. Enchanting them, buying them lots of presents, and then before they know it, they're in a horrible traffic situation where they're forced to do sex work. So that, it comes with an entire difficult, traumatic experience for those people. They really need a lot of support to get out of situations like that once they find them. And working at that charity was a multidisciplinary approach. So I worked with police, I worked with child protection, I worked with counselors, I worked with family advocates that helped to navigate the system. And that was really wonderful. Again, it was that collaboration of working together to provide support to one family at a time. And it's much more effective than working in silos.
Oh, yeah. I want to move on, too, because your published chapter in a UK domestic violence book focused on community collaboration. How do you integrate community collaboration into your legal practice, and what benefits does it bring to your clients?
Well, you can tell I'm passionate about it because I seem to talk about it a lot, and I did publish a chapter on it. So, I mean, yeah, collaborating is so important, whether that's with other lawyers. Like I said earlier, like if you can befriend the lawyer on the other side, even though they're called our opponent, which I don't like, you can get wonderful results for your clients if you can just see past that emotional fighting that both are doing, and we can come and remove ourselves from it and try and think creatively about how we can solve problems. And I think collaboration does that, right? Like I also offer a community legal clinic once a month at the YWCA. And through that, I meet all kinds of people that would not have access to law and lawyers otherwise. And so I think collaboration is just the key to success for everybody.
I agree. And I'm a huge believer of giving back to community. But looking ahead, what are your aspirations and goals for the future in terms of advancing women's rights and social justice through your work as a human rights lawyer?
Is it too shooting for the stars to say I'd like to just stop gender-based violence from happening? That's what I'd like.
I'm there with you. Okay, I will be by your side. I would love to have that stop as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I hope for. And in the meantime, I'm going to help people access justice, whatever that means for them, because it is different for everybody, and help to stop discrimination and harassment whenever I can. And sometimes the law does that. Sometimes all the other things I've talked about doesn't do that, right? It's about being creative and finding a way forward.
So, Nicole, I've got 45 seconds left. Words of wisdom for someone who is stuck in a violent situation, or a situation that is not, conducive to a happy life.
Believe in yourself and seek help, right? Talk to a lawyer. Like, quite often people think, oh, I can't talk to a lawyer, I couldn't possibly, but I'm not that expensive. And actually, if you tell me that you have a financial barrier, I will offer you a free consult. That's not my standard because I need to get paid too, but I try and be as accessible as possible. If you can get help and just get advice, get information, information is power, and it will help you make a decision about what to do.
Thank you so much for your time today, Nicole. Love your words of wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to close today's show with some facts about gender-based violence from the Canadian Women's Foundation website. Gender-based violence can take physical and emotional forms such as name-calling, hitting, pushing, blocking, stalking, criminal harassment, rape, sexual assault, control, and manipulation. Many forms of this abuse are against the law. Approximately every 6 days, a woman in Canada is killed by her intimate partner. If you live in Canada and are looking for information, you can go to the Canadian Women's Foundation website at canadianwomen.org and go to the Support Services tab. Tell a friend, also go to your local police station. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Bye for now.